Hello, Iris J here with Madrona's Pulse Teachings, and I am talking with you a little bit more about the South Node in Libra. I recorded a video last weekish on the South Node in Libra talking about general energies. Here I'm going to take you on a journey through the houses with the South Node in Libra. So you want to have a look at your chart and you want to see which house and or houses you have Libra in, because this could absolutely, it does depend upon which house system you use, but you could have it in one house, you could have it in two houses. And so then you want to listen in for whichever houses you have that South Node journeying through, keeping in mind that the South Node begins at the 29th degree. So if you have Libra in your second and third house, you want to listen to the third house first, and then it's going to come later on into your second house. And also the disclaimer I do whenever I do these through the houses videos, just reminding us that these are general energies I'm talking about in terms of weaving the energy of the South Node, Libra, and the house. If you have a loaded Libra, okay, and or if you have your South Node or North Node in Libra, the energies are going to be heightened a bit. Okay, if you are of the Libra and Pluto generation, I talked about this a little bit in the South Node video that I released, and I will drop the link below for those of you that haven't seen it. You're going to have heightened energies, and so then you would be weaving in the archetypes of whether you have Mars there or you have your South Node. If you have your South Node, you're having what we call a nodal return, where the North Node is going through your natal North Node in Aries and the South Node in Libra, and or you could be having a nodal opposition where it's reversed. So you could have your North Node in Libra and the South Node is going to go over that North Node. And so there's so many ways that we feel and work with this energy personally. That's how it's supposed to be, because we have our personal charts. So that's just the disclaimer that some of these energies could be heightened. If you have nothing in Libra in your chart, it is still part of your psyche and your consciousness. And the South Node, all the more reason to listen in, because the South Node is going to be picking some of these themes up for you that you have 18 months to work with. So the South Node came into the sign of Libra in July 2023, just this year, and it will stay with us until January 2025. Excuse me. So we are working with these energies over 18 months. It's a great idea to listen to them now. That's why I'm putting these videos out now, just as we're kind of starting really now to dip into some of these energies that we're going to be refining, letting go. The South Node is absolutely helping us to let go of some of the habits that show up in our Libra way of life, how we relate to others, how we have some habits probably from childhood about one-on-one relationships, about our sense of self in one-on-one relationships, about how we value ourselves, how we value others, how our relationships extend out into things like money or our material goods, all of the ways that we value things through relational ways of being. Libra is part of that. It's also where we want that's justice and equity coming together. It's where we want justice. So we want justice and equity in our lives, but also where we might be called to do some of that work in the world, sometimes through one-on-one relationships. Again, that's kind of it for the way I'm gonna open up the South Node in Libra, because I have a whole discussion on that. And I want to get into moving through the houses. Let's do that. So I am going to go through the houses 1 through 12, and you're just listening into the houses that resonate for you, or you're going through a journey of Libra because you're working on learning about the archetypes of the houses and the energy in the South Node, and listening to the whole journey can be educational for you as well. If you have the South Node moving through your first house, Libra in your first house, wherever this is bringing up your whole identity. So firstly, you want to take some time and really reflect on how one-on-one relationships focus you into your identity. What's their importance for your identity? How do they help you to know yourself? Libra is all about the ways that other people help us to know ourselves, to discover things about ourselves, to do work in the world through our relationships. Libra is not really about the other person, but about the relationship we form with the other person and how they help us to discover parts about ourselves. So firstly, if you have Libra energy in your first house, you really want to take some time and think about how relationship is important to your very sense of identity. How does being in one-on-one relationship, whether this is with your partner or friends or colleagues, or if you have clients, or if you have a teacher, or if you are a teacher with your students, however one-on-one relationships show up for you in your life, what's the importance of that for you? How does being in one-on-one relationship help you to actualize who you feel like you're here to be? And then taking that a little bit further, how does it stop you from being who you want to be? What are some of the habits of being in relationship that you can kind of take some time to reflect on? And then you can also reflect on which one-on-one relationships this happens in your life, where you silence yourself to support a status quo with another person, with what they want, whether that's a person in power like your boss, or whether it's a relationship, and we've been taught that a certain person in a relationship should have power, whether that comes through how much someone else maybe makes more money, or it's related to gender, or however that shows up. It can happen in all different ways. It could be with a parent. How were we potentially trained to silence ourselves because of the role that certain parents had in the house and that society teaches us about parents? Where have we silenced ourselves in order often to maintain a status quo? And when Libra is silencing itself to maintain a status quo, it is falling into shadow. And the South Node in Libra absolutely wants to eradicate some of those habits. Again, not focusing on the people, especially Libra first house. It's about you. It's about your identity. How can you work at making your relationships more equitable? Meaning, not that things are always rosy and happy and smiling, but that you both get to voice your opinions and thoughtfulness. Maybe you need to put in some different boundaries so that you can have space to think more clearly. Maybe you need to spend less time with someone, even just for a little bit, so that you can kind of suss out how you haven't been showing up as authentically as you'd like. But these are some of the themes that are going to come up. And the South Node works in a way that if we're not paying attention, or if we're refusing, like especially if we're talking about a partner or a close family member or a close boss, sometimes we don't want to. We're afraid that love is somehow attached to that status quo. Love is not attached to us silencing ourselves. Love invites our whole self to be present. And so if we have at any point in our life been taught that love requires us to silence ourselves, the South Node wants to help you break through that, because it's about your identity, okay? And again, this is about that relational way of being in terms of your identity. Second house. So we have Libra in the second house, and we have the South Node moving through the second house. This is about our resources. This is about our values. So if you have Libra in the second house, and this is where, how do our ways of relating to people one-on-one help and also hinder building the foundations of our life? How is one-on-one relationship really part of the way that you have and can and will build the foundations of your life? What do I mean by that? That might mean if you're in a long-term committed partnership, your partner's income, your partner's ideas, your partner's emotional support of you. you creating your own income, your own relationships outside of your partnership. The South Node wants to clean up relationships so that you can have a stronger sense of self in your foundations, which are emotional, which are material, the foundations of all the way that we build our life. Yes, it's also about money, but it's the way that that income comes out of our values. And if you have Libra here, it's the way that your one-on-one relationships are also related to your income. I gave the example of a partnership. This could also be your clients. If you have clients, it could be your colleagues at work. It could also be, do you value yourself enough in these one-on-one relationships so that you can make what you need to make? The word deserve is a tricky word in our culture, because the truth in a Libra perspective is that we all deserve to live in a life where we can flourish, if we had a community-minded way of life, which as a capitalist colonial society, we do not. And yet Libra in the South Node in Libra in your second house wants you to have what you need. And the way that you relate to people is a big part of that. So the South Node is going to want to wake up a little bit where we've been maybe people pleasing, and the way that maybe has been getting in the way of living in an authentic self, so that we can create justice and equity for ourselves, which is part of what Libra is. And then the way that when we do that for ourselves and have a foundation that is what we need, we can also stand up and go out into the world and create more equity and justice in the world, big or small. It doesn't matter how we're doing that, but it's that our needs are being met, and the South Node is going to clean up some of our relational habits that maybe hinder us from thriving and having a strong foundation beneath us. Third house. If you have Libra in the third house, this is the house of communication. This is the house of smaller communities. It's also the house of siblings. That doesn't apply to everyone, but if you have siblings, this Libra and your one-on-one relationships with your siblings could absolutely come up. And so again, that South Node wants to clean up the Libra area of our psyche, of our life. And for you, this is firstly how you communicate and how you think when you're in one-on-one relationships. So if you have Libra in your third house, one-on-one relationship is most likely important for getting ideas going sometimes. It's important for communicating, expressing, being able to talk to people, whether that's in a professional mode because you are a counselor or you have clients or you're a teacher. But those one-on-one relationships are important, and or just having friends or having a partner or having a therapist, someone that you can talk to in a one-on-one capacity is so important for getting authentic movement of ideas and communication. This also then flows out into the work that you do in community. And if you have Libra in your third house, and if you are someone that shows up in community, or your work reaches out into community, whatever that word means for you, because community is a loaded word in this day and age, especially in the world of spiritual social media, the South Node wants to clean it up. So for you, how do you sometimes not show up as yourself in those one-on-one relationships? How do you sometimes not communicate what you need to be communicating, often for the sake of the other person, often for the sake of a status quo or peacekeeping? So a little grit wants to come in. A little grit is going to come up over the next 18 months so that you can realign your communication to what you need to communicate in different circumstances. Again, when I'm in community, when I'm in a relationship with this person, when I'm with this sibling, when I'm with this person at work, the way that you communicate though wants to become a little bit more authentic so that you can flourish, so that equity and justice making in the big sense of the words, but also in our daily life, so that beauty has more space to come in. Okay. If you have Libra in your fourth house, this is the house of our home, of our psyche, of family, of the environment that we live within, that we learn within, in our home base. So if you have Libra here, firstly, the people that you live with, the South Node wants to ensure that you're at this point in your life, wherever you are right now, that you're communicating and sharing in relationship with the people that you live with, if you live with people, in a way that really supports you and really supports your ideas of equity and justice making and beauty in the home, which is not just the physical home, it's your psyche, it's your inner world. Being in relationship, if you have Libra in the 4th house, being in relationship, whether that is just with friends, whether you are a therapist or you have a therapist, you have clients, whether you have, you work with people, the one-on-one relational aspect is really important to how you enter your psyche. If you have Libra in the 4th house, your relationship with yourself is also very important. And the South Node moving through your 4th house is going to want to clean up your relationship with yourself, because this is the house in which we relate to our psyche. And then also that might happen through how we relate with our partner, how we have friendships or professional relationships that help us come into understanding ourselves a little bit more. The South Node might want to take you kind of deep into understanding yourself through your relationship with yourself and your relationship through friends and again, all that one-on-one sphere, because it wants to clean up your psyche. Quite literally, the 4th house is not just our home and family. It's first and foremost the core of our relationship and our inner world. Also, as that happens, relationship with family. So this is the family that we grew up with, the family that we live with now, the family that we're building for ourselves. All of us relate to the word family very differently. So whatever family means for you, you might have had a idea of family when you were younger, and that might have changed. The South Node is probably also going to bring things up there. It wants, again, the South Node wants to clean up so that we're not silencing ourselves for the sake of keeping peace. If that's something that you did as a child, the South Node is like, out, out, out. I want you to be able to dip into that wild Aries authentic sense of self, so there's no more silencing the self in relationship. And there might be situations that present themselves so that we can work on that. There probably will be, and this is what we're doing for the next 18 months. If you have Libra energy in your 5th house, this is your creative self-actualization. So something about being in relationship with other people in a one-on-one way is really important to shining, that you get to shine when you're in one-on-one relationship. And again, this is about people mirroring you back to yourself. This is about feeding off of the energy of someone else, that you get to so fully come into who you are. And the South Node moving through that 5th house really wants to clean up so that you can shine even more brightly. You most likely shine through your ideas and the thinking realm and some parts of your life, because this is air energy in your 5th house. Whatever communication, if you are an artist, if you use communication in your daily life and at work, if it's just through the way that you shine, if you're a caretaker in the home, however, if you work with children, that's also 5th house energy. However you shine, and the way that happens with one-on-one energy, the South Node wants to, if there have been places where we kind of silence ourselves a bit because we think that maybe we're showing up too strongly, sweet 5th house Libra, you can show up more strongly, you can shine, and the South Node is going to create opportunity for us to learn how to do that so that you can self-actualize in an even more courageous way. And it's important that you do that, because then you've got Aries in the 11th house, and that energy, that courageous self, wants to be a self out in the world, out doing its radical individual thing. And part of being able to do that is that your relationships really support you getting to be your creative self. So the South Node is going to clean up relational habits where you haven't really been able to do that. 6th house. So if you have Libra in your 6th house, this is your house of daily living, your daily habits, your mind-body connection. You have an Aries energy in your mind-body connection. You want to make sure that you don't get carried away into anxiety when you have an air in the 6th house. And one-on-one relationships are so important for your daily way of life. Being able to communicate in one-on-one relationships are really important for your daily way of life, whether that is just the relationships in your family, the relationships at work, whether you are someone that counsels other people, whether you get counseling from others. Being able to access relating to others is important, and it gets even more important during these next 18 months because the South Node wants to support you to be even more present in your daily relating, in the way that you access who you are and who you're here to be in your relationships. So this means that the South Node there might be some tension. You know, if you have Libra in the 6th house, relationships are showing up on a daily way somehow. So especially those one-on-one relationships for you that are in your daily life. Again, this could be when you're home or this could be at work. It's probably going to be both. There might be some tension that shows up so that you can kind of pay attention. With the South Node in Libra, we actually don't want to reach out and blame other people. If we're getting into tension with someone else, we want to reflect back. We might want to see a professional, or if we have a go-to friend that kind of mirrors back to ourselves. Why am I getting so stuck? Why is this bothering so much? What is it bringing up for me? Oh, that's bringing up the way that I've been silencing myself my whole life because of what I was taught back then. And I am not back then. I am here now in 2023. I can speak my mind a little bit more clearly on the day-to-day, a little bit more honestly. So that might be coming up in your relationships. 7th house energy. So if you have Libra in the 7th house, relationships are important because you have Libra in her home. Okay, so this is the house of one-on-one relationships. You've got Libra here. One-on-one relationships have a stronger meaning, especially if you have placements in that 7th house, whether those are planets or asteroids. And the South Node really wants to clean up how you relate to others, what that means for you. If you're in a committed partnership, it is probably absolutely going to come up here so that you can just move into a higher rung of your relationship so that you can be even stronger. So this is an opportunity if there's things that like where communication has just gone out the door, or there's habits that come out where I silence myself because I don't want to make my partner unhappy, or I know my boss doesn't want to hear about this because I always want to talk about the way we could create a better work environment and I don't do it. How can we find ways to communicate what wants to be spoken? Libra doesn't need to silence itself in order to keep the peace in the status quo. That's not true justice. That's not true equality, and Libra wants true justice. So this is about letting go of the old habits of keeping peace and speaking in a way that is still potentially diplomatic, because Libra is a diplomat and you do have Libra in the 7th house, in a way that absolutely honors both sides of the scale and knows that sometimes it's got to go up and then it's got to go down, and that going up and down is how we find an equilibrium. But there can be a really fake sense of equilibrium where we're actually like this, but we were taught that this is equal when we were kids, or this is what society has taught us is equal, and we need to start learning and embodying new ways of being in relationship, and the South Node is going to help you to do that in all the spheres of one-on-one relationship. If you have Libra in the 8th house, this is your house of deep intimacy, deep bonding. This is the house of going under the surface, getting into the mental health of both yourself, but also potentially others. It's also the house of going under the surface, studying things that we consider are beyond the veil, whether that's astrology or that's the occult or however that comes up for you. And it's also where we just transform. So if the South Node is going through Libra in your 8th house, there's a transformation going on. It's most likely going to affect you deeply in your most intimate relationships. Your most intimate relationships, whether that is with a committed partner, whether that is with a friend, whether it's a family member, whether it's your therapist, those intimate relationships are being transformed so that you can access a higher elevation of what it means to be in a relationship with another being. And for you, this in the 8th house, that's deep, it's intimate. It's also an airy way of being in relationships. So whether you have someone that you just love communicating and that's how Libra is air energy, it's through that exchange of ideas that intimacy is found. Your ideas potentially want to be a little bit even more deep and authentic, and letting that come up is going to transform how you relate. It might be uncomfortable at first, but the South Node likes to make us a little bit uncomfortable so that we can shed what we need to shed. And that way, that Aries, who for you is in the second house in the North Node, can be really building and pioneering a new way of creating a really strong foundation, a creative, fiery foundation for yourself in that second house. And for that to happen, how you relate intimately with others and how you go into your own psyche and how you go into the psyche potentially, especially if you do this work with others, like if you do any mental health work with others or clients, that's going to transform in ways that you're coming into new ways of being in relationship. Libra in the 9th house. If you have Libra in the 9th house, and when the South Node is moving through your 9th house, you are having a transformation of your worldview. And the way that your worldview and your sense of learning and your excitement of learning is accessed through one-on-one relationship is transforming. So in the 9th house, if you have Libra here, firstly, ideas are probably pretty important. And if you have any profession where you are a teacher or you do client work or you work one-on-one with people, the way that you relate and the way that you bring your energy of world making and understanding the world into those one-on-one relationships wants to transform. It wants to come into a way of relating in an even more creative way so that you can access understanding and learning in more creative ways. There's a lot of passion in the 9th house, and you're potentially able to access that passion through one-on-one relationship. And if you haven't been, then that wants to break through at this particular point in time so that you can understand things like why we're here, big questions about philosophy or astrology, or just understanding what the justice system is all about, or politics, whatever your interests are in terms of worldview. The South Node wants to eradicate some old habits. Here you could also be unlearning things about that you learned in childhood, that you learned about the meaning of life. You could be totally reworking your idea of success, and most likely how you relate in one-on-one relationships has a lot to do with that. So you want to let go of places where you're maybe trying to people please, or you're maybe trying to keep a status quo, because the 9th house is like, we need to go past the status quo so that we can keep learning about big questions and why we're here. And the South Node wants to help you do that. If you have Libra in your 10th house, one-on-one relationship is really important for how you access the bigger world. It's important potentially for how you move through your day-to-day work world, for the work that you do in the world, for your vocation. Libra is how we relate to one-on-one people, and you have this in the house of vocation, of how I move through the world. So those work relationships, but also the one-on-one relationships that support you, like our partner, and our one-on-one relationship with our partner absolutely plays a role in how we move through the world and the energy that we have to move through the world. And so all one-on-one relationships are wanting to transform so that how you move through the world, again, the world, it could be really in big ways, or it could be just in your local community, but that wants to transform, and it wants to do it so that your relational way of being is even more authentic. And the way that this is happening is also that polar energy of Aries is in your 4th house with the North Node. How you show up in your home, how you show up in your psyche is wanting to be really inspirational, a little bit raw. And in order for that to happen, the way that you are in relationship out in the world, in your outer sense of self as well, that needs to be even stronger, supporting who I am when I'm in relationship with others. So you want to apply this, whether it comes up in work or, however it comes up for you with those 10th house themes. It's really important that you get to have an even stronger way of being an honest, equitable relationship with people so that it supports you on your journey and also allows others to be supported by you. 11th house. If you have Libra in the 11th house, we're in the house of wider community. We're in the house of dreams and visions. We're in the house of creating a better world for humanity, even if we never think about humanity and we just follow our individualistic self, except you have Libra in the 11th house. So one-on-one relationship is important, and being in relationship and thinking at least about one other person is important to accessing your dreams and your visions and the way that you're here to be. The 11th house is also the house of network and friendships. So if you have the South Node going through that 11th house, how you show up in friendship and the way that friendship supports you to show up in the world, it wants to go through a change. And again, all of these changes are about letting go of habits of people pleasing, letting go of habits where we were taught to silence ourselves. And this could be transforming your vision for the world. This could be transforming your vision for yourself, your own actual dreams. It's so important in the 11th house that we get to cultivate our dreams, because when we cultivate dreams, and you have Libra, dreams that are aligned to equity, dreams that are aligned to justice making, even just for ourselves, that ripples out and it starts creating the shift in the mosaic that is the paradigm shift itself. So again, where have I been taught to people please, and how have I been doing that maybe in a bigger sense, and how can I actually show up so that I'm not just keeping the peace, but that I'm getting into the deeper rungs of Libra energy, which is where we allow there to be a conflict of interpretations, because that's how we actually create change, not by silencing ourselves or opportunities for other. You also might be driven to justice work if you have Libra in the 11th house. And so again, one-on-one relational work being part of how you do that justice making in the world. 12th house. If you have Libra in the 12th house, this is your house of beyond the realm of, this is way beyond day-to-day life. This is in dreamscapes. This is in dissolving the ego to be one with source. This is in the oceanic depths of the unconsciousness. And if you have Libra energy here, then there's a sense that somehow being in one-on-one relationship is part of accessing those depths, is part of accessing going beyond the self. It's kind of like if you've ever been having a conversation with another person and you're both so in it and you're both flowing, and all of a sudden it's like we were in this other realm and we were there together. There's an absolutely beautiful scene from St. Augustine's Confessions that demonstrates this, where he's talking to his mother, because Augustine's relationship with his mother is very important. And as he's narrating the experience, it's as if they just went into God's realm together, and then slowly they come back and they start hearing the sound of their own voice, and that noise means that they've come back to this material plane. But if you have Libra in the 12th house, you can go into those godly realms through conversations with other people, especially when they're like-minded, whether that's through themes of justice or spirituality, whatever it is that gets you into that flow. You really want to create space in your life to support relationships that take you to those places, that help you feel like the noise of the daily life is dissolving, and that you can get to this beautiful ethereal quality of place. And it's really important that you bring in the one-on-one relationship. Sometimes we can get there with a therapist, sometimes it's with a friend. If you do one-on-one client work, you might be someone that also is able to support others going into that place. But that energy of kind of transcendence through relationship is what the South Node kind of wants to get rid of, the static in your relationship, so you can have more and more of that, i.e. when we're showing up to people please, when we're in relationships, especially if you Libra in the 12th house, relationships that are toxic, that do take you into darkness. They want to be cleared out, because Libra in the 12th house wants to take you not in, like, darkness is part of the 12th house energy. It is part of the journey there. But if a person is constantly triggering us into a darkness that doesn't feel healing and doesn't help us to enter through a void into oneness with the divine, if you have Libra in the 12th house, part of the journey of that energy is to eradicate the relationships that hurt us and bring in those that really support us. And that is the end of our journey. If you're still with me for some reason, blessings, and I'll see you soon.